I came home 3 hours early because a meeting got canceled, expecting nothing more exciting than surprising my wife with takeout. Instead, I unlocked the front door and heard someone whisper my name upstairs. That single moment shattered every version of my life I thought was real, and I almost turned around before learning the truth.
My name is Daniel, and until that afternoon, I would have told anyone I had the perfect marriage. Claire wasn't just my wife, she was my best friend, the person who knew every fear, every dream, every scar I carried, long before we exchanged vows. We met 8 years earlier when my car broke down outside a bookstore during a thunderstorm. She laughed at my terrible attempt to fix the engine, offered me an umbrella, and somehow turned the worst day of my week into the beginning of my favorite chapter. Life wasn't glamorous, but it felt complete. We bought a small house in the suburbs, argued over paint colors, adopted an old golden retriever named Murphy, and spent quiet Friday nights watching movies instead of chasing excitement. I thought ordinary meant forever. Claire always remembered birthdays, left handwritten notes in my lunch, and somehow made every place feel like home. Whenever people joked that marriages eventually lost their spark, I'd smile, because ours only seemed to grow stronger with every passing year. Then little things started changing. She began locking her phone, something she'd never done before. She'd leave the room to answer calls, then return with forced smiles in quick explanations that never quite matched the worried expression in her eyes. At first, I blamed stress. Her company had announced layoffs and everyone was nervous. I told myself she was protecting me from unnecessary anxiety, but deep down, a quiet voice kept asking why honesty suddenly felt harder for the woman who never hid anything. One Saturday morning, I noticed she'd started taking long drives alone. Whenever I offered to come, she'd kiss my cheek and say she just needed time to clear her head. The answer sounded reasonable, yet something inside me refused to relax. A week later, I accidentally picked up her jacket, and a folded receipt slipped onto the floor. It was from a restaurant we'd never visited together, paid for 2 people, on a Tuesday afternoon when she told me she skipped lunch because work was overwhelming. I didn't confront her. I hated the version of myself already imagining another man across that table. Instead, I buried the receipt inside my desk drawer, convincing myself there had to be a simple explanation waiting somewhere just beyond my growing paranoia. But explanations became harder to believe. Claire started smiling at random text messages before quickly turning her screen away. She'd hum while cooking dinner, then suddenly drift into silence whenever I walked into the kitchen, as if I'd interrupted thoughts she couldn't share. I even asked my best friend Marcus if I was overthinking everything. He laughed, called me lucky to have such an amazing wife, and reminded me that suspicion destroys marriages faster than betrayal. His advice sounded wise, yet my instincts refused to disappear. Then came the canceled meeting that changed everything. My boss sent everyone home before noon because the client postponed our presentation. I grabbed Claire's favorite Thai food, imagining how surprised she'd be to see me standing at the front door hours before expected. The house felt strangely quiet. Murphy wasn't barking, which was unusual whenever anyone came home. Then I heard soft footsteps upstairs, followed by a man's voice, so quiet I couldn't understand the words. My heart started pounding harder than it ever had before. Every terrible possibility crashed into my mind at once. I climbed the stairs without making a sound, gripping the takeout bags so tightly the containers bent inside. The closer I got to our bedroom, the more convinced I became my marriage was ending. Just before reaching the door, I heard Claire say, "He can't know yet." Those 4 words hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. I stood frozen outside, trying to breathe, while every memory we'd ever shared suddenly felt suspicious. The bedroom door opened unexpectedly. Claire gasped when she saw me standing there, and the color drained from her face. Behind her stood a man I'd never seen before, holding a thick folder filled with papers. Neither of them seemed ready to explain. I looked from her terrified expression to his nervous silence. My voice barely worked when I asked the only question that mattered. "Who is he?" Claire opened her mouth twice before speaking, and those few seconds felt longer than our entire marriage. "This isn't what you think," she whispered. Every movie, every story, every cliché suddenly sounded painfully real. I laughed without humor, because people only say that when everything is exactly what it looks like. I waited for my world to officially. Instead of answering immediately, the stranger slowly extended his hand. "My name is Michael," he said quietly. "I'm Claire's brother." I stared at him, completely confused. Claire had told me years she was an only child. That impossible sentence changed everything again. I looked back at Claire, expecting her to deny it, but tears were already running down her face. She nodded slowly, unable to meet my eyes. Suddenly, the affair I'd convinced myself existed became something stranger, darker, and somehow even more painful. Claire admitted she'd lied from the day we met. She wasn't an only child. Michael had spent years in prison after taking responsibility for a crime connected to their abusive father, protecting Claire from being dragged into a nightmare she desperately tried to escape.
She told me she'd buried that entire chapter because she wanted a normal life. Every background story she'd shared, every family holiday we'd skipped, every excuse about distant relatives had been carefully built on one enormous lie she believed she'd take to her grave.
Michael had recently been released after new evidence proved he never committed the crime. The folder contained legal documents clearing his name. Claire had secretly helped pay for lawyers for years, terrified I'd discover the truth before she found the courage to tell me herself. I wanted to feel relieved there wasn't another man stealing my wife. Instead, I felt something equally devastating. The woman who promised we'd never keep secrets had hidden the biggest part of her entire life. Suddenly, I didn't know which memories were actually real.
Claire reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Why didn't you trust me?" I asked. She cried harder than I'd ever seen before and admitted she wasn't afraid I'd leave because of Michael. She feared I'd leave because she'd lied for so long.
Michael quietly apologized for becoming the reason our marriage was falling apart. Before leaving, he looked at me and said, "She spent years protecting everyone except herself." Then he walked out the front door, leaving silence heavier than any argument we'd ever had. That night, Claire finally told me everything. She described growing up in constant fear, changing schools, hiding bruises, learning to survive by keeping secrets. Listening to her, I realized the walls she'd built long before meeting me were never really about mistrust. They were about survival.
Still, understanding someone's pain doesn't erase your own. For weeks, I barely slept. Every conversation replayed inside my head. I questioned whether love could survive when its foundation included years of carefully hidden truth, even if the reasons behind it were heartbreaking.
One evening, I found the notebook she'd always carried. Inside were unsent letters addressed to me, dating back almost 5 years. Every page began with another attempt to confess everything, but each ended with fear winning before honesty ever reached my hands. Reading those pages changed something inside me. I realized Claire hadn't enjoyed deceiving me. She'd been trapped between protecting the life we'd built and confronting the past she'd spent decades escaping. Her greatest secret wasn't another relationship, it was a lifetime of fear. We started counseling together. The sessions weren't magical. Some days ended with tears, others with uncomfortable silence. But for the first time, every difficult conversation happened in the open, instead of hiding behind polite smiles and carefully chosen half-truths. Months later, Michael came over for dinner. Murphy instantly loved him, which somehow broke the remaining tension in the room. Watching Claire laugh with her brother without shame for the first time, I understood healing doesn't erase scars. It simply teaches you to stop hiding them. Looking back, coming home early didn't destroy my marriage the way I first believed. It destroyed the illusion that love can survive without complete honesty. Real relationships aren't tested by perfect days. They're tested by whether truth arrives before it's too late. If I'd walked away after hearing those whispers, I would have spent my life believing the wrong story. Sometimes the biggest betrayal isn't cheating. Sometimes it's believing someone could never trust you with their deepest pain. And if this story moved you, like, subscribe, and share, because you never know whose hidden truth might change everything.